What a track. It's incredible and easy to jam to. And it's pretty complex, so there's a lot to talk about this bop. And it's also important to note that this is a remix, so I'll try to focus on the remix parts, but it's really hard to ignore the parts that are taken from the original. But I still will be talking on those because I haven't done a vid on the original mic drop. And when I say that I'm gonna talk about them, I'm gonna try to help put into words what you felt the first time you watched it. You know the "What's up, boys?" Oh my god. Oh my god. Where you lost the ability to speak properly. By the end of this, we should be able to put into words from one person who doesn't have a musical background to another what makes BTS Steve Aoki mic drop remix so good. So like any big hit video, we pass the yoga bubbles, not knowing what we're getting ourselves into. We see Steve Aoki walk into a room that lights up, knowing exactly how the original track sounds, anticipating what we're about to hear. We hear his footsteps. And then we just see our boys magically appear. Kind of looks like an edited version of where they do dance practices. We cut to hooded figures who look like they represent armies. And how do our boys start off? We get a cut to J-Hope jumping over the table, ready to dance with the rest of BTS behind him. Oh my god, if these are real armies, that's the closest I've seen them to BTS because of the usual... Yeah, that. It then shows Mike's already preparing to drop because they know what's coming. So as J-Hope opens up with his lines, we have these brilliant cuts between the interrogation cell and what looks to be the main lobby of a detention center. Then we get to one of my favorite cuts, which is pretty early in the track, and it's of both RM and Jin appearing as the gun fires on the track. It lets you know that they're doing something really great from the get-go. It sets you up for some awesome jump cuts and what else happens in the vid. We now have the introduction portion of the music video set up. It transitions between the detention center, interrogation room, and Steve Aoki playing over the music. So we get this pattern until we get Suga rapping in a photo development room with Jimin and Jungkook dancing on the table over his shoulders. And then this happens. Oh god, did he get pissed that they were walking on his development table or something? Was he developing pictures and they ruined him? Look how terrified Jungkook looks. Come get him down and get him some tea. I'd like to point out that at this point we are only 1 minute and 40 seconds into the video. Afterwards, we go into the pre-chorus, which has the lights going to the beat of BTS dancing, and what's that? Oh, we got Steve over here looming over them like he's watching them. What's really interesting is this is how I picture this remix. You have BTS in the front with the original mic drop elements heard, followed by the remix portion heard throughout. Just like it's encompassing it, kind of like what we have here. And the chorus consists of the 7 dancing between the 2 rooms from earlier. So we had this pre-chorus that had Steve kind of watching over our 7, and then we have the chorus which went back to dancing. Right here we have his template of what's going on. It looks like we're gonna have them dancing in the 2 rooms, being the interrogation room and the detention center, with the chorus being some awesome mystery dance box where we have Steve kind of looming. Right after this, though, they immediately break the template. Then we got this handsome fella who bursts out of the ambulance like, "Hey, I brought this vehicle to take you to the hospital because you won't be able to stand after this track." And he'd be the one singing it because, you know, he knows how to speak English. Apparently from watching Friends as a kid, which me and many other people found out from their Ellen interview. Which is pretty cool, because Friends is an awesome show. So he comes out of the ambulance and I'm like, whoa! What are you doing with that hairstyle? Some people were probably confused at it, but many more were attracted to it. I couldn't pull that off, but I know you can. Keep it up, RM. It's really interesting because at this point, it almost looks like every scene is them breaking the law. They were in an interrogation room in a detention center, and then them with the police cars in the ambulance. But I kind of just get proven wrong right after this point because I go what looks like into a bootleg recording studio. But maybe they're doing something illegal here. I don't know. There still is a lot of law-breaking scenes. Alright, so after what looks like they got arrested for their bootleg recording, we go back into the interrogation room with Jungkook dancing. Huh, would you look at that? The cameraman and camera that he's holding must be a vampire since they're not showing up in the reflection. I mean, I didn't know that cameras could be vampires, but it's 2017, so what do I know? So think about this. Since they didn't get the camera crew in the reflection, that means it's not a reflection at all. They had to film this twice to not get the camera crew. By that I mean they had to film Jungkook doing the dance from behind, mirroring the movements of the camera in the foreground, which is something that some would totally look over, but I also thought this was a cool little touch. So now we get back to the dancing from the crew, but we go back to the police ambulance scene, but instead we now got a huge... Jeez! Yeah, that instead of the ambulance. Okay, now this is something someone needs to explain to me. I see that it looks like we have our flying guys in the background that look like the same kind of flying guys from the development room, but are they on fire? This is where the ambulance is needed. Do I need to dial Korea 911? What's the number? Is it still 911? I don't know how it works there. We have all these crazy visuals going on, and they're still not pulling the punches yet. It also seems that cars on fire seems to be a new thing for BT. Never mind. So after this, we conclude the video with the 7 dancing in the aftermath of that last scene, almost like they ran out of colored ink. So this scene transitions between the two of black and white and where the cars are actually on fire until it leads back to the original room that they were sitting in. But this black and white scene is interesting. I feel like it has a different meaning or message behind it. It's almost like they're in an alternate dimension or they have finally become free. There's no more fire, there's no more people on fire, it's just BTS. They're free from the haters that they were talking about, which is why we're going to the ending. They're finished with what they had to say in mic drop, and now all the haters are gone. They no longer have to worry about that. So now we're back in the room that they were sitting in, and it almost was like either BTS was watching Steve or Steve was watching BTS. I was picturing it that Steve was watching them sing and dance, and this is what he pictured. Something so fiery that it would be difficult to remix, but he was able to do it. We finished up with those mics that were floating, finally coming down a drop, and with Steve taking off his headphones, knowing that his work was done. And hopefully this isn't his final work with BTS. I want to hear more from him. What I really find cool is that they were able to combine all these elements together to really match the tempo of the song, and making sure you were kept on your toes and not bored during any scene. You didn't really know what was coming next. This video was not needed for the track to sound amazing, but it helps to put an emphasis on this being a big deal in many ways. One is that we got a remix with a Western artist, and two, it's just a music video for another BTS song, which ARMYs are always a fan of. There's also the use of the clever camera techniques, for instance, to like cut and add more members in the beginning, as well as jump between the two scenes, like during some of the dances between the detention center and the interrogation room. These aren't new to the K-pop scene, but it feels so satisfying with seeing how its timing is with some of the elements in the track. When you flow through this track, you can feel yourself getting giddy at all of the wardrobes and dance moves that you feel content by the end of it. That is until you hit the replay button again and listen to it and watch it again. This is only the video, and it's overlaid on top of this amazing remix track, which really helps ensure that this video has a great foundation to work on top of. So we start off with a muffled version of the beat, which is just a derivative from the original track. This transitions into an unmuffled version of that, which sounds so sinister, like you don't know what's gonna happen, but you know it's gonna be big. Even with that though, it takes a little while to progress, which is done deliberately as to not take away from the key moments of when BTS sings. It has these perfect low rhythmic moments when BTS sings, so you can clearly hear the vocals and the music without the music overwhelming the vocals. In the past, Steve Aoki has had booming EDM tracks, but in this he doesn't boom it so much, which is refreshing because it allows BTS to still shine bright. This beat progresses all the way up to the pre-chorus, where we're finally starting to hear it build up. Up to this point, it sounds like something you would hear in a rap track where someone's just rapping freestyle. But since this song isn't all rap, it changes accordingly. I found this really interesting, but in the pre-chorus, for me anyway, it's hard to tell what is V's voice and what is actually going on in the background. And this was done in the original too, so Steve didn't really touch anything because I think he saw that this part sounds amazing the way it is, I shouldn't mess with it. If you listen closely, you can actually hear this subtle ringing sound in the background too. And it's supporting his vocals, but it's done in a way where I think it sounds like he's singing on an Arabic or Indian scale. I may also be thinking that way though, because the main beat of this song at this point is being played on what sounds like a synth version of a sitar, which just ties into it. You have to listen carefully, but it's there. Here you also have that clapping, which is there to help keep the beat, but also add texture to it. Because before this, we've been hearing a lot of the smoother synth, so this helps make it pop a bit. And then we go into the chorus. In it, you have what I like to call layering. I'm not sure if that's the proper term, but that's just what I'm gonna call it. You start off with this main trebly verse, but it has some bass that stays on for the rest of the track. As we move further through this, you'll hear different versions of the main beat, but with different elements added during the chorus. You sometimes get more treble, and other times you get a little bit more bass as it progresses through the track. And all these intricacies get shed off when we approach the conclusion, and all you're left with is a snapping, the main beat. What's really cool is even in this conclusion though, we hear what I call layering again occur. We get a whole other set of sounds starting to be layered on top of this conclusion, with all sorts of tempo changes and drum beats until the final 5 seconds. And in the last 5 seconds, we hear a higher pitched version of the main beat that closes out the track. Even though this track is a remix, Steve really adds so much to it that it is its own beast. It doesn't take away from the vocals or the original song, but it's really refreshing to hear. It's not just some generic remix that you hear that would leave you disappointed. It isn't just some generic mix that leaves you disappointed or just manipulates the vocals the entire time where it loses the soul of the original song. And what's really interesting is I don't really think Steve touches the vocals. So like I was just saying, I love the way the vocals aren't modified or changed. There's so much going on around them, but the vocals stay the way they're supposed to be. I'm not sure if that was an agreement between Big Hit and Steve, but what it allows to do is it allows Steve to work with what he's got. BTS has amazing vocals as it is, so he's able to really play around with what he has. Some remixes just manipulate the vocals so much where it doesn't even sound like the original people, it wouldn't even sound like the original track, and it would be this bootleg version of what you thought would have awesome remixes. Kind of to the point where if he did change any of the vocals, you wouldn't be able to tell. It's really well done if he did it. I'm gonna focus on the vocals even though they're mostly unchanged from the original, but I really just love how gritty they sound. Even without knowing the lyrics just at this point, you can tell that this track is about sending the haters off and letting them know that they are worth what they are, that they deserve to be on the main stage. I think overall people should be humble and reserved, but there is a time to be gloaty. But if winning awards and being invited to USA award shows isn't enough, then I don't know what is. As gritty as it sounds, what they're saying is even more intense. This just comes down to them saying, we won. I know I'm not alone in this, but my favorite lines in the track are from the pre-chorus and the chorus. That's why they're in the pre-chorus and chorus, it's the catchy part. But I like it because it's not just saying like F off to all the haters, but it's saying the haters are all just talk, and we're here to prove it. Did you see my bag? Did you see my bag? My bag is full of trophies. How you think about that? How you think about that? Haters are struggling. It's already golden my success. I'm so fire in, torch relay. And this part sounds much better in Korean. You hurriedly run away. How you dare, how you dare, how you dare. It's just rubbing it in their face. They're all talk. As soon as BTS comes out and gets all their awards, the haters just crawl away. You don't hear them anymore. Or if you do, you know it's a bunch of hot air. So when it comes down to closing remarks about this, I don't really have that many. I kind of already let you know how I feel about it just by through the analysis itself. I spent a lot of time looking at this music video because of how impressive it is. They've used so many great choreographed tricks in the music video. They were able to bring on such great talent like Designer in the American version and Steve Aoki for all three of the remixes. And they were able to do it in a way where it doesn't take away from what is BTS. They wanted to make sure that the armies still are happy with what they have and that they aren't losing their roots. Of course, their music is going to change and evolve as they try to get better. They're not going to stray away from their core values and do whatever it takes to get in the limelight. They're staying in the limelight because they're sticking to those core values. They even went a step further and changed their logo to match one of the armies because they know where they come from, and it's you guys. And I know for a fact 4 albums isn't their limit, and something tells me that more mixtapes may be popping from the individual members of BTS that may be collabing with even more Western artists. I think it's a big deal that BTS gave a collab version of their track a music video. This is saying a lot about what they may do in the future because I don't think this is the last time they're gonna do it. This isn't gonna change how BTS is. It just means that they may do more collaborations with Western artists. It truly is bridging the gap between the West and the East, just like music intended to do. Bring us all together. Well, that's second to J-Hope's smile. Everybody gets brought together by that.